It's the day after Thanksgiving. I have no idea what I'm going to upload on Sunday / Monday morning, depending. So I just got the bearing in for the A10, so I think that's what we're going to tackle. We'll see how far we're going to get. This is mostly just a bottom end for me anyway, because I'm going to be giving it back in that state for the guys at Bax Recycle to put it back in the bike and blah, blah, blah. We did some things together, I think. It's turned into quite a mess, but bushing is in the timing side and it is honed. We were waiting on the bearing so we could do infloat, and I need to paint the cylinders because I bored and honed a new set of cylinders to replace the old 60 overs. We're going to quick get these finished taped up because I'm going to paint them tonight before I leave, and then I'll bake them tomorrow morning. So if we get these taped and set them to the side, we can then start shimming our crank. Then we can put the rods on, and then we can put the timing side back together, put our SRM oil pump on, and boom. So let's hope this turns out. I am going to try and get it done today and tomorrow. I haven't done a whole lot of talking about what I'm doing. I've noticed that, so I'm going to try and cover more, not step by step, but just maybe explain what's going on instead of just saying, I got done with this, let's move on. The way I do cylinder paint, so obviously I blast all my cylinders unless somebody requests patina. But in this case, these were god-awful, and so they got blasted, bore and hone, degreased, ready to accept paint. So I take the 3M auto paint or auto tape and cover my gasket surface. I'll use either like the back edge of a razor blade, high-speed steel. Sometimes I've got like just a drill blank. Just any really hard metal is best, but I just use the edge of the gasket surface to create. If you ever put on grip tape on a skateboard, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's the way I prefer to do it because it keeps a nice clean edge. You could take a razor blade and like, saw that edge. I've done that multiple times. It does dull incredibly quickly because you're obviously scratching it against cast iron. So not my favorite way to do it, but it does work. I do seem to like catch a lot, I've noticed. So to me, taking a really hard steel works really well. You could use like the butt end of a drill bit, like the far end, if that's all you've got. But whatever you need to just sit there and rub on that edge. And then as you kind of rub it away, it'll kind of just want to pull off. And then you have a nice clean edge. It's just kind of a pet peeve of mine when I see like I'll get cylinders that somebody else painted, or like maybe the remanufactured cylinders that people have available, and they have such poor paint jobs on them. It's just, I don't know, it kind of frustrates me. I take a lot of pride in the finish on these paint jobs. So this is the paint I use. Whoa. Yeah, focus on it. This is the paint I use. I really like this one. Semi-gloss black DE 1635. If you get a good amount of layers of this, and do the 10 minutes in between each layer, but if I usually do like 2 layers with it facing down, 2 layers with it facing up, get both sides of the fins, obviously, get down in there deep. That's a pretty good amount of paint. It doesn't really want to run if you know what you're doing with aerosols. And then I put it in my little oven for, I don't know, maybe 15-20 minutes at like 300 degrees, 225, somewhere in there. And that really does a good job of like evening out the surface, and then it kind of pre-cures it, I guess, so it kind of gets hard. You don't necessarily need to do that. You can just run it, and then it'll like heat on its own. But just for like installation and stuff, it does make it a little bit more durable once it's been cured a little bit. So I'm gonna finish this side, flip it over, tape up the other side, and we'll set these to the side. And then the other half of the cases are in the oven right now. I just got the outer race baked out of it, so I heard it fall, so I'm letting it cool, and then once it's done, we'll go grab it and we'll start shimming. Okay, I think the case half is hot enough, so I'm gonna run up, grab it, and then we will try and drop in our outer race. So let's see. Oh yeah, perfect. And then obviously we'll just remind it to be flat. Didn't even need it, but cool. Okay, well, now we'll wait for that to cool off. So a lot of waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. I haven't put the rods on the crank yet because I do like to check the infloat without the rods in the way, just to protect them and make it easier on me, and it's worth that extra step. So we can't really do anything until this is cooled off, so I'll go work on something else and then we'll be back. I had a nice smooth. I was gonna set it all together and show you, but I am fighting all of the Yamabond that is down in every single hole on this thing. So it doesn't want to even, normally you go to set them together, they drop nicely and have good contact, but I have every single spot fighting me. This is why I really like blasting things, because then that way I kind of get to start fresh on my account, like what I would consider to be fresh and ready. Doing these half-ass in between things just causes more problems in the long run, but it is what it is. So I'm now going to start putting all of the hardware on the 50 studs that are in these things. I'll snug it all up evenly. Right now I don't have any shims in. Because I'm swapping cranks, I didn't even want to assume, normally I think I've said that in the A65 video. If this was all the same stuff, I would have just gone ahead and stuck what was in there before as a start. But because I had no idea what we were working with, I just went ahead and left all of it out. So I will be starting from scratch. So we'll probably be putting a decent amount of shims back in. But for right now, I'm going to get all these studs snugged up. I have such a love-hate relationship with BSA. I really, really like the non-units. Not the biggest fan of the units. They have their redeeming qualities, but just not something I'm super, super excitable about. But again, they do have their points that I do like. There are certain things about like an A65 that I like more than I do about like a Triumph. But when you start talking about like the bushings and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so this is what you want. I don't even know. Let's move you so you can see what I'm talking about. When you go to put any bushing engine back together with all of these fresh parts, especially when you swap the crank, new bearing, new bushing, everything, you really want to see this. This is very good. It would be even cooler if there were shims in here right now, because then we would really know we did a good job. But obviously, it should still have this proper freeness once we do get to that point. But yeah, if I were to have tightened all of this up and then had it lock up, there would be a lot to investigate. Probably, with bad bushing alignment or whatever it might be. But yeah, it's always very satisfying when you stick it back together for the first time and things are just flowing beautifully. Still not in frame. Hold on. Yeah, so this is what you want to see, just effortless. Try to get a little torque on there so you guys can see it. So anyway, I'm now going to put it back on my I-beams, and then we will stick an indicator on it, and yeah, we're gonna have a lot of well, not an abnormal amount, but we need to put some shims in there. So let's get an indicator on it and see where we're at. Okay, so the plate I used on the A65 wasn't going to work. It was too big. Just any big, heavy chunk of steel, the heavier the better. It will kind of stabilize, it'll help stabilize everything, and it will keep your dial indicator being accurate. So on these you have, I mean, you could get over here with something really thin. I'm just going to go right there in between with my screwdriver. I can get some good leverage. It's nice to kind of struggle, I guess, to get that full stroke, so then that way you're not overdoing it and flexing and getting a false reading on your dial. But as you can see, when I get focused, we are quite a ways out. We're looking at about 25. I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to get an inaccurate reading. It's closer to 30,000. So we're going to have quite a shim in there. I'm going to grab some right now and get them behind that bearing, but we will, I'm going to put the camera down and get an actual accurate look at this, but I will get it back apart, get some shims behind there after I do some math, and we will check it again. Then we can get the rods on, get this thing out of here. It's now time to be done, so I can paint and go home, and I'm really hungry, so we're done for the night. I did start this kind of late in the day, so it's not like I took all day to do that little bit, but I do have my shim stack. We're going to go with 27 thousandths, and we will throw all of that in the morning. But I am going to put my mask on. I'm going to do 4 layers of paint and then leave. Tomorrow morning, when we're doing this, we will put them in the oven and cure them, so you'll kind of get to see the difference, I guess, as to what effect the baking has, so I can show you. But I'm going to get going. I think I showed this with no context. This is a exhaust system that you may remember my brother starting in one of those old videos I'd made a while back. He'd kind of abandoned it. It was getting frustrated, which I completely understand, but I felt like it was too cool of a start to just completely ditch, and so I decided I would do something with it. He had bought, obviously, all the U-bends and stuff, the 45s, and then a couple of straight pieces. So I took one of the two of the straights, and I cut this 8-degree angle into it, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's a very, very exaggerated slash. But yeah, I showed it really quick with no context, but that's the context. I brought it down here and just used this mock-up to finish it. I don't have my welder at home set up, so it's just easier to do it here really quick. But it needs, obviously, final welded all the way through. Hey, knock it off. Quit crying. Anyway, we'll get onto that later. We're going to do some videos on his build. But yeah, so that's why these pipes are here, and that's why they look the way they do. So we're back at it. These have been sitting for, 12 hours probably. And so they still have like a grippy kind of texture to them. That seems to be pretty common with that paint. What I'm going to do now is pull the tape off, and then we will put it in the oven like I'd said before. So that really kind of hardens and cures the surface. So I'm very happy. Again, this is 4 layers altogether, essentially. It's I paint it facing upside down, 1 layer, 10 minutes later, second layer, flip it over. First layer, 10 minutes later, second layer. Usually is a good enough. Sometimes you'll have a hard time getting really, really deep back in those fins. But usually, if you know how to use an aerosol can, you can pretty well do a good job. But let's get these in the oven. They do stink a little, but it is what it is. I'm not a huge fan of breathing this shit in, but it needs to be done. So, and then once it's cooled again, we will do our oil wipe down and get all the contaminants out of the cylinder walls. Okay, so I have 27 thousandths worth of shims in there, which is a lot, but you know, it's just how it is sometimes. But we are still out 5,000. Well, okay, I shouldn't say that. We are at 5,000. We're shooting for 2, so we do need to get 3 more in there. You know, this is about how it goes usually. It takes a couple tries. You know, you get your initial number, and then once it's all actually stacked up, there's the real world. But, yeah, so pretty consistent 5,000s there. We will add 3 more and check it again. All right, we now have our proper gap. I'll show you here. Boom, 2, 2, 2, consistent. Again, you can manipulate this. I mean, I could really get after this and show you whatever number I really want, but you can feel when it stops. And we've got a good solid 2 there, so I'm very, very happy. I can now move on to getting the rods on. We will clean these cases up. I've handled them a ton. I don't even know if I flushed all the hone oil out of the feed end here to my standard, but other than that, we can get the rods on and then go ahead and get this bottom end buttoned up. Our cam looked good, so we don't have to do anything there, but finally done with this. You can kind of see my setup here, but like I said, flat surface, make sure everything's really rigid. Don't try and balance this or just roll it around, because you're gonna get inaccurate. So I've got my I-beams keeping this flat. I've got a pretty heavy chunk of steel. I do like normally a bigger piece than this, but you don't always have that luxury with the shape. But it is rigid into place, and again, just something to give you enough leverage to kind of effortlessly move it, but to create a very accurate, and you can really get a lot of feedback in the handle. As I'm doing this, I can really feel when it's stopping. I'm not guessing whether or not I have a full lift on that. But anyway, again, happy with this. Let's move on. Okay, so when we switched to this solid crank, it is actually also a large journal. So that's exactly what it means. It's going from the older small journal crank to the later large journal crank. That also meant we needed new rods, so we've got these proper connecting rods, and so I did take this to 40, so it sounds crazy. Luckily there is a ton of material here, so not a huge deal, but anyway, I've got the shells in. I will start fitting these, and normally, like we do, it's always marked so we know orientation wise, but because these rods did not come off of this crank, we don't really need to worry about it. But I guess I'm going to stop talking and just get these on. Okay, I did misspeak, because though these rods didn't have somewhere they lived, you do actually have to